Hello, hello everyone. It's been a couple of weeks since I've done one of these. I don't know why, I think life just kind of got in the way, and I also had a bit of a reaction to the vaccine, but back today and glad to be here. So today, speaking to Mimi Nicklin. Let me get Mimi on and we're gonna have a good old chat about empathy. So Mimi is a best-selling author. She's on The Edge, and she is a global empathy advocate. And here she is. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Hi. Oh, I am so excited because this is my first live from Sri Lanka, and it means I can just join. Like when you're in Dubai, you have to have VPNs and it's all crazy. And today I was just like, click, and here I am.
You are. Well, I'm so pleased that you're here. And I was thinking, actually, this is our first international Marlo meets too. So very exciting.
Very exciting. I feel very proud to be your first foreigner.
And how are things in Sri Lanka?
Things in Sri Lanka are locked down. Things in Sri Lanka are, I can see one of my friends in Sri Lanka at the Tea Project's just joined, so they will know lots about it. But it's a little bit of a crazy place right now. It's a bit sad. COVID has not been kind, well, to the world, but particularly to the subcontinent where we have such extreme poverty. So it's difficult, but we are very grateful that we have a home and an internet connection and some monkeys outside my window, so that's good.
Monkeys. Nice. Well, I will be completely honest and say, I told you this earlier, that in the UK today it is Empathy Day, and I had no idea, because, you know, life, I guess. But I really love the synchronicity that it is Empathy Day and that we'd organised this. We had this planned for weeks. So that's really nice. So for those who are kind of joining or watching, tell me or tell us a bit about you, Mimi, and how you came to become an empathy advocate and doing the work that you're doing.
Oh, so yes. So I had an interesting journey because, as I said earlier on my Instagram feed this week, this was never really the plan. This was quite an organic evolution for my life. I've worked in marketing and advertising for my whole career, and 3 years ago I joined an advertising agency in Dubai to take over that team, and was quite surprised to find that it wasn't as I expected when I took that job, which is very typical of the region, and so was thrown into turmoil. But in that turnaround journey, was able to sort of put to the test my belief that you can run business, improve profit, as well as sort of humanity, balance humanism with capitalism, I always say, in turning around a business. So throughout what was a very tumultuous 3 years as a single mum with a baby, we turned around an ad agency, and we did it with empathy for our people, our clients, our suppliers, everybody at heart. And somewhere throughout that journey, I decided I needed to write it down. And I actually wasn't far from Sri Lanka. I ran off to Singapore for a long weekend. And when I came back, Rebecca, I had 35,000 words. And I was like, oh, this could be a book. So suddenly I found a publisher, and then I wrote a book, and then everything changed. And then suddenly this book and this message was all over the world, and letting me meet people like you. And I made friends and contacts and quit my corporate role, and everything changed. And now I spend a lot of my time talking about empathy in all different areas, predominantly the workplace, but also in the area of the family and parenting, community, recently even in counter-terrorism with the police, so all kinds of areas. And yeah, my life changed in 2020. I always say it was my best, worst year.
Life can be like that sometimes, can't it? It's kind of that balance. I had one of those. I had my daughter, and yeah, best of times, and then also worst of times for other reasons. But talking about empathy and family and children, let's go back to basics, because I know that empathy is becoming more and more topical, which is great, and people are talking about it more. But what does empathy mean to you? What is it?
Mm. Fundamentally, empathy is about understanding. It's about perspective taking. It's the ability to stand in the shoes of someone else and see the world or their context through their eyes. So you often hear people say, stand in the shoes of others, which is basically what we're talking about. This is about being able to connect with others around you. Huge amount of it's about listening, which I'm sure we'll talk about today, and just being able to hear others in the space that they're in. So it's, two key things about empathy. It's judgmentless, and it's not about agreement. So empathy is about understanding. You don't necessarily have to agree with the person, but you're able to make a connection with them because of that mutual human understanding. It's something all human beings have, which again, I'm sure we'll cover today. But yes, it's the leverage of a skill that we're born with.
Because, well, that was going to be my question. It's interesting you said about walking someone else's shoes, because that's the theme of empathy today, exactly that. But I was going to ask that question is because someone might often be referred to, or it's almost seen as a character trait, like, oh, so-and-so is very empathetic. Is it something that needs to be taught, or is it something that is innately within us?
It's both. Because you can teach it and it is innately within us. So empathy is a skill set or an ability that's built into the human brain. It's built into the prefrontal cortex. So you are born with it. All of us are born with it in equal measure. So it's innate. It's an evolutionary skill. We evolved to have this because fundamentally the backbone of all human civilization is empathy. If you can't connect and understand, how can you build, I don't know, a village, let alone, a world, global economy? So it is something we're all born with, but can you teach it? Yes, because it is a skill set. And like any skill set, the more you practice it, the more proficient you become at it. So much of my work is talking to corporates or groups or parents about how do we teach, how do we use empathy more often, how do we make the choice to empathize.
Great. We had one question. It's a tech question. I'm going to answer it so I don't forget. Somebody asked, can I see this later? Yes, it will be on Happy Marlo's feed later, and it will also be on our YouTube channel later. So don't worry if you have to go or if you don't catch this in real time. So Mimi, back to what you were saying, how as parents or grown-ups, people that have children in their lives, what kind of age? I think I read earlier, well, I did read earlier today, that empathy starts to be demonstrated in children as young as 2. So how can we, what ways as grown-ups can we really start nourishing that and encouraging empathy early on?
There's actually, not to disagree with whatever you read earlier, but there's actually, sorry, causing chaos already, but there's actually evidence that babies empathize within 4.5 hours of birth.
Okay.
So yeah, we really are born empathizing. You've probably read before about, when babies cry, when other babies cry, why are they doing that? And there is now MRI studies to show that that is a form of empathy, that they are empathizing with other babies. That's why when one baby cries, like in a NICU, like in a neonatal unit, the other babies will join in, right? So so we are born with it. What you find is that up until about 2.5, children do it very innately. So if you have a toddler, which I know you do, you'll see them do things like if you are carrying a tray and you drop something, they'll pick it up and they'll give it to you, or they'll hold a door open if they can, if they're strong enough. So it's a very innate skill. I mean, I always talk about my little girl. If I'm sick, she'll give me her teddy. She understands that when she's sick, she wants her teddy. So when mummy's sick, mummy probably wants that exact same teddy, right?
Yeah.
So they are born doing it. How can we, continue to encourage them? I mean, I think a huge amount of that is in role modeling. So of course, for these small people, and even as they're bigger, even teenagers, even when they pretend to hate us, right? They're still watching, right? They're still watching us to know how to navigate this bonkers world that we all live in. So role modeling is a huge part of that. It's, showing them empathy. Well, I guess there's 2 ways: showing them empathy consistently, which we can talk about, and showing them you empathizing with others consistently. There's lots of other pieces we can talk about, but role modeling is fundamentally a key part of that.
So you mentioned showing empathy and talking a bit about that more and as part of this role modeling. So in our day-to-day lives, what might some examples be?
Of showing empathy to our children, or showing children how to empathize?
Well, let's start with to our children.
Okay. So one of the things I write about in my book, and every parent of a small child has heard this at some point, which is if you want to get through to them, you have to come down to eye level, right? So you know, people, you know, always reading the books and stuff about, you know, if you're, especially if you're trying to teach or tell off or, you know, really get a message to a child. But it really is true. Eye contact is incredibly important because there is a subconscious impact of eye contact literally within the human brain. So one of the first things I always say to parents is even as they get older, beyond toddlerhood, and you see it with parents, sometimes you might see a parent come down to like an 8 or 7, 8-year-old at the school gate to talk to them. Actually making sure that your child feels that you can see them makes a monumental difference to how they respond to whatever the conversation you're having is. Because fundamentally, as human beings, we thrive by being seen and heard. That's humanity, child or adult. So the first is really eye contact. The second is helping children know that they are being heard. So if the eye contact is seeing them, you know, even my daughter now, she's 4, she'll often say to me, "Mummy, I want to tell you something, put your phone down." Right? She's 4.
Yeah.
You know, she knows if I'm going, yes, darling, yes, and you know, she knows, right?
Yeah.
Of course, under 4, they're a little bit less verbose about those things, but hearing them, actually listening to them, and it can be exhausting, right? Toddlers don't stop talking for like 7, maybe like 11 hours a day. But really hearing them and making them feel heard, again, makes a really big difference to how they respond. And I would say the third thing is really using language and considering how we use language. And I do this in the workplace as much as you would do it with parents, actually. When children are trying to communicate, even when they don't say very much yet, words like "help me understand you" or "I want to understand," again, make a huge difference to how children, young and kids respond to you. And I know that it works because now my daughter, who clearly spends, you know, a lot of time with me, says to me, "You do not understand me. You are not understanding me, Mummy." And I can hear it, you know, because I spent so many years telling her I'm trying to understand. And sometimes I don't understand her because she's 4. And so she says crazy things that don't make any sense, right? But, you know, using words that say, "Darling, I know you're frustrated, but I want to understand. Help me understand you." It does diffuse quite a lot of drama. So yes, those would be my 3 sort of top line things. Eye contact, massively important. Really hearing them, getting off your phone, getting off those distractions and hearing what they're saying. And then the choice of language, you know, really helps.
So seeing, hearing, and then how we speak. And so the second part of that was, and so then how do we help our children themselves demonstrate empathy or be empathetic towards other people?
I think, again, children are born knowing how to do this, but they do also live in their own worlds, right? Because they're small and everything's very sensorial and emotional for them, and especially in those younger years. So the imagination is a really powerful thing. In fact, I write quite a lot about imagination in my book and how empathy really is about imagination, right? You are using that imaginative muscle in your brain to understand, imagine how that person is feeling in that situation. I said at the beginning, empathy is judgmentless and agreementless. It's just about understanding that context. So with children, we can help them do that. So if daddy does something that she doesn't like, or they take a toy away, or they're late, or I don't know, whatever daddy has done that they don't understand, helping them use their imagination and saying to them, "So darling, can you imagine how daddy might be feeling? Why do you think daddy did that? How do you think daddy feels about it when you throw his phone on the floor and smash it or whatever has happened," right?
Yeah.
They learn really, really quickly, and hello, Carla. They learn really, really quickly how to understand others. But it takes practice, adults and children, for them to be able to really stand in the shoes of somebody else and start to imagine that. Again, it comes down to language. As I said, role modeling is really important. If they see that you listen and that you hear and that you make an effort to understand the feelings of others, they will reflect that. They will imitate that because you are their great teacher. So yeah, I think it is, again, a lot of it's about language, a lot of it's about patience, because especially with toddlers, you know, they're so emotional that to slow them down enough takes time. But again, I am far from a brilliant parent, but I do know that with my little girl, because this is my life, right? I live empathy every day. She's got it. You know, this bit, there's many things she can't do, but this she can. She will, on her own at 4 now, come and say, Mummy, I think that person's feeling like this because of that. I'm saying, yes. And what do you think we could do about that? Well, we could change this, or we could give them that. And she's learned that. So yeah, repetition in that is important.
I think, I mean, the role modeling thing, of course, is so important across all aspects of parenting. And I was speaking to a girlfriend yesterday who just had her 3rd baby, and was saying, you know, we can't be perfect. None of us can be perfect all the time, and that's okay. It's just, you know, trying our best and exploring and experimenting with some of these different things. And you said in our Marlo habit yesterday around little eyes always watching, and yeah, that's kind of a scary thought in of itself, but it's the truth. You also said in the habit note yesterday around empathy being contagious. How so?
Well, it actually is from a physiological point of view, which is brilliant. Because it's an evolutionary skill, fundamentally, when you empathize with others, they will empathize back. Now, of course, there are extenuating circumstances to these things, and it doesn't always happen instantly. But fundamentally, as human beings, we know from an evolutionary point of view that we have to connect to thrive. As a civilization, we can't do it on our own, right? We're not meant to be alone, which is why things like the loneliness endemic out there today, and, you know, lockdowns and all these things is so detrimental to the human race. But if you empathize with others, as I said, they will empathize back. You know, for example, smiling, one of the key parts of connection, right? When you smile at someone, even when you say it, it makes you smile, right? And you smile back, it's totally contagious, right? Smiling is, it's not just a thing that we do when we're happy, right? Smiling is actually a connection point between human beings. It shows safety, it shows likeness, it shows collaboration, all these types of things. It shows that you want to be connected with someone, and it is contagious. You'll find that even if your child is smiling, unless they're in rampant stages of a temper tantrum, it might not work. If you smile at them, they will smile back, right? It's natural, it is evolutionary. So it is, empathy is contagious, because we know as a race that we have to do it in order to grow in civilization. And I always talk about the difference between surviving and thriving. As individuals, but as groups, in workplaces, in homes, you need to be able to do that. So if you're in a meeting, or, you know, whether that's at work or it's in a community center or wherever you are with other people, you see I'm leaning into you, I can't help it, even on Instagram Live. If you lean into people, if you make eye contact with them, if you smile, don't cross your arms, all of these types of things, all of these signs of empathy, people will do them back. Even with audiences, like even if I present to audiences or big audiences, you do these things, they do it back. It's amazing. It's natural.
I do want to say, if anyone who's watching live wants to ask any questions for Mimi, please feel free to put some in the chat. So obviously empathy is now it feels like your life's work, and I know that you have big plans ahead. What would your kind of vision be, or dream for the future around children and young people specifically when it comes to empathy and kind of growing up into the world that we're currently living in?
Look, the reality is we have 3 decades of declining empathy levels, and the only people that can change that is our kids, right? We've got a really troubled world. I mean, I literally don't turn on the news anymore, which my mother tells me is terribly wrong. She's like, you need to be connected with the world. I'm like, I don't want to connect with that world. But, you know, when you do turn on the news, or you scroll through your Facebook or whatever you're looking at, there are so many deep issues of, you know, disconnection, segmentation between us as human beings. And as I said, that's not entirely connected to 30 years of declining empathy, but it is very much intertwined with that. The only people that can fix this is our kids and our youth. And one of the things I'm doing at the moment is working with the Metropolitan Police Service in London to find a way to do that with youth literally in London. How can we create more empathy with these kids that are coming from backgrounds where there is none, you know, because quite literally empathy can save the world. Now, of course, I would say that because that's what I focus on, but it really can. You know, there's so much science, there's so much evidence around it that when we empathize, when we understand each other, parents, workers, whatever we are, all areas of life improves, all the way to things like suicide rates. So we can change our world with empathy, and teaching our children, putting it into the curriculum, having it in schools, is the only way to do that. You know, we led the world to 30 years of decline, us lot, unfortunately, but the next generation can reverse it. So that's my hope.
I mean, that seems like quite a shift in terms of some of the major organizations like the Met or government, but you're right, it's at that level that we do need to be seeing these changes. And I didn't realize you were doing that work, because it seems interesting to me, you know, living in London and having seen the past 20 years or so and some of the different approaches where it's, well, we need to have more activities, or we need to have things for people to do, but to actually look at it more from a, well, you know, mental health perspective, really, and thinking around empathy. And I know we've spoken about this before, but what are perceived as softer skills. I think it's fascinating and exciting that those kind of old school organizations are really starting to get it, at least trying to move in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that there are, you know, use the word old school, there are new school people in all of these organizations. You know, it doesn't make it easy. And actually, just before I came onto this call, literally, the meeting I just finished was with a group of people who work in empathy all around the world. So we had like New Zealand and Malaysia and India and everywhere on this call. And the sort of the narrative across all of these people was, but we don't know how to convince people to do this because of that old school, that structural, that sort of lack of ability to change. And what my opinion was in that call is the same thing, is in all of these organizations, you get people who can believe, but you do sometimes need to change the narrative, the language around it. You know, sometimes I don't necessarily focus on the word empathy, I'll focus on the word understanding, connection. So it's about teaching our children the skills underpinning those, you know, particularly in the British education system, those skills aren't really there in mainstream schools. You know, we don't teach our children to listen. We don't teach our children to understand each other. We don't teach them how to communicate better. But in a world of tomorrow where who knows, we might not, you know, who knows if we'll even have universities like they are today in another 20 years, right?
Yeah.
What could be more important than creating citizens that know how to connect and listen and work together?
Mm. Well, I'm really excited, and you and I have been speaking a bit about doing more work together with Happy Marlo, which is brilliant. For people who are watching and who maybe haven't read your book or watched your podcast, how can people connect with your work and what you're doing?
They can connect with me on Instagram at Mimi Nicklin, which is my favorite platform, but my fabulous social media team now has me on, Rebecca, I think I'm on 9 platforms. Honestly, I feel like the world of social media could be our entire lives, like literally our 9 to 6 job.
Yeah.
But I'm really active on Insta. I love this platform, but I'm also really active on LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok. Hi-ho, I'm everywhere at Mimi Nicklin. So wherever you are, you'll find me.
You're there. But tell us a bit about your podcast. Well, you've got your podcast and you also have the Empathy for Breakfast series. I think you've kind of merged the two recently. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, so the Empathy for Breakfast show has become a podcast. It started as a video-based platform. I think it might go back there in a few months as well, like bring it together a little bit. I thought everyone had video fatigue, but I don't know. I don't think they do. I think video is making a comeback in the last few weeks. But yes, it's a podcast. It's all, you know, the Empathy for Breakfast show is across all of the podcast platforms. And that's really 20-minute conversations with all kinds of amazing people, including Rebecca, obviously.
I'm coming on in a few weeks. I'm very excited.
Can't wait. So they're very short. They're all less than 20 minutes to be empathetic to people's time. And it's conversations with all kinds of people about understanding, connectivity, empathy. We've got, you know, ex-drug addicts. We've got people who have been victims of sexual violence. We've got teachers, educators, CEOs, all kinds of people just bringing this up. So it's not like we talk about empathy for 20 minutes in every podcast, but it's a connection there. And it seems to be seems to be resonating. I think, yeah, I think the world is beginning to understand there's something more, you know, underneath all of this. I can see my friend Sheba's joined, and from Inner Reflections, she does lots of this work as well, just helping people connect on a far deeper level than we are today.
Yeah. Yes, we're in the midst of a major shift of consciousness, I believe. And I think it's, you know, in that sense, it's an incredible time to be alive. You know, it's not easy. And as you said, you know, this past year or so has brought so many challenges for so many people. But I feel quite optimistic about the future, and things. It's an opportunity for all of us. Yeah, I'm glad to be part of all of this with you, Mimi.
Me too. Yeah, I mean, I think this is, you know, the best bit about this work. And you know, I'm still in lockdown. I don't know if anyone heard that beginning. I'm still in lockdown. This is my second lockdown in a different country, literally 12 months apart. So I did one in one continent, moved to a new continent, went straight back in again. But the best bit about all of this is that you meet these people that you can share and collaborate and come on a journey with. And you know, that's what this world is all about, right? It's about finding your people, finding those people that see the world in a similar way and that want to make a difference. And you know, that's how you and I met. You know, I love that you feel like a really close friend, and yet we've literally never even been on the same continent together.
I know, we've never. I was just thinking the same. We met over a year ago now, and we've done a few things together, and we're friends. But yeah, we have never met in person. But I know it will just be as though we have when we eventually do.
It will. So keep on doing this, lovely, happy Marlo team, because our kids need it, our parents need it, we need it as human beings. We need more mindfulness and connection and opportunities in our day to find ways to do that. And you know, the work that you're doing, whether that's sound, music, storytelling, advice, all of those things. You know, I'm now, and then I'll stop talking, but you know, I'm in Sri Lanka and in the jungle. That was not the plan. I'm literally in the middle of nowhere. But there is a really deep wisdom in the East about these things. You know, some nights I'll sit outside, bearing in mind it's in lockdown, I can hear drums in my jungle garden, right? And it's like that, very rhythmic. You can almost imagine someone's dancing around a fire. No idea if they are, but that's what they're doing in my head. You know, this reconnection with beat, with music, with sound that we lose in modern city life. And being here has reminded me of that. So yeah, Becca, I just think your work, I know you're not drumming around fires, but you could one day, maybe. You could.
Absolutely.
I just know what you're doing. So thank you for doing it for our kids.
Thank you. And it is about bringing that ancient wisdom, but creating experiences and opportunities for children and their families to engage in them in ways that feel fun, that feel safe, that feel relevant. So yes, that is the mission. That is what we're doing. We just had some amazing news yesterday that we're going to be part of the Wilderness Festival, which I'm just very excited about. So yeah, there's lots going on at Happy Marlo, and I know there's lots going on with you too. I think you've been teasing us with an announcement that's coming up soon. So I imagine you're not going to tell me anything today, are you? But when will we know more about
in like, I think like 2 hours, I'm going to go live. I'll be back here. You can come find me. But, you know, more or less the big reveal is that I'm launching a new platform, which is, you know, you're right. We met a year ago. So much has changed for me in a year. Well, no, not changed. Evolved is a much better word. And finally, this platform that I imagined somehow is alive and kicking and about to go live. And it just, you know, it's only a first step, but it's a first step in formalizing what I believe we can do in the world, because the more we talk about empathy, the more empathy the world will have. And we need more professional platforms to reach more people. We need to do that, which is why I do this and believe in this conversation and want to write a second book and all those things, because this is, I said earlier, my life's work. That seems like, I don't know, really beautiful, but you know, it's a goal for me. It's a creation of something. There's lots of people doing it, you know, I'm not alone, but it's definitely a message that's far from elevated enough.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, and thank you for everything you do. I'm here
Thanks.
alongside you. I'm looking forward to seeing all that is to come. And thank you for being here this afternoon. I guess it's this evening for you at this point.
I don't know what time it is. I think it's about
evening.
4.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we joined at 3:30, so it's probably now like 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay, so, my lovely. Well, thank you, and I will speak to you soon.
You will. Thank you for having me on your wonderful channel, and I'll speak to you very soon. Have a great day.
You too. Take care.
Bye. Bye, everyone.